and in 983, Dobsonium crowned himself Emperor of FoddSquad HQ. Ray takes the throne at 25. Young Ray ascends at a time of apparent peace, yet the seeds of a fresh round of rebellion had already taken root. Less than a year into his reign, the Occitan Catholics would rise in rebellion, followed mere weeks later by a faction seeking to curtail the crown authority. After securing some progress on the Occitan rebellion, Ray would order his troops back to the heart of HQ to deal with the ever-growing forces of his cousins leading the Liberty faction. After scattering the rebel forces in the wake of the Battle of Orleans, Ray went on the offensive, laying siege to several major cities in the north of the empire. After the decisive Battle of Beaujeu, the cousins were quickly put back in their place, and attention turned back to the Occitan rebels. A few sieges later, and the Occitans would surrender as well. Unfortunately, before the end of the hostilities, Prince Leo was killed during a siege of his lands in Barcelona. Dukes Randolph of the Hootle branch, Adam of the Aussie line, Heminger of the Waxu branch, and King Doreen are all extremely secure with their ancestral lands. Meanwhile, Duchess Eleanor of the Poly branch finds herself an heirless widow at the age of 24. We'll be keeping an eye on her. In 991, Ray sensed an opportunity too good to pass up. Mercia had broken free from England and was in no position to defend herself from the might of the Squad Empire. After sending a siege force to the Mercian capital of Warwick, the rest of the army headed to North Wales to repel an ill-fated counter-invasion. The first battle at Ruthin would go very well for the Squad and set the stage for the rest of the contest. The siege of Warwick went off without a hitch, and the second battle of the campaign would be fought at Talgarth, where the Squad would once again wipe the floor with the Mercians. After storming the walls of Herefordshire, petty King Halstein would surrender his lands to the control of Ray, and everything was A-OK in Mercia forever. 995 would mark the arrival of the heir to the empire, Prince Clemens. April of 996, word would come from Flanders that Duchess Eleanor had taken a husband and had an heir on the way that would bear the Polygian family name. Clemens got every little boy's dream at 2 years old, a baby half-brother Misero. Peace couldn't last forever, and in 998, the French Catholics would rise up seeking independence, and in just 6 months, they had been put back in their place.
We have found the witch, may we burn her!
Unhappy with the continued existence of Vikings in Mercia, the Pope declared the Squad's Mercian holdings the target of a great crusade in the summer of 1001. The fighting would begin with a massacre at Bristol, but by 1002 the Christians had begun to assemble a large force in eastern Mercia that the Vikings could no longer ignore. The Crusaders would land a massive victory at Leicester that scattered the defending troops. Regrouping at Worcester, the Vikings would have their revenge. January of 1003, whilst Ray led the Battle of Shrewsbury, a third son, Frank, would be born back in Paris. The fighting would continue into summer of 1004, when the decisive battle would take place in Shrewsbury, though it would take till the next spring before the Pope would call for an end to the crusade. Knowing that the fighting forces of the Christians, and England in particular, had been devastated by the protracted crusade, Ray declared war for the entirety of the Kingdom of England. The English would lead a chase to the coastal city of Aberfraw, where they would be promptly decimated. Meanwhile, the siege company had reached the English capital at Dunholm and quickly claimed it for their own. And in August of 1006, Ethelfrith would cede control of all English lands to the Squad. In 1007, whilst ending the independence of the last Welsh counties, news would come of yet another son of the Squad, this one to be named Bob. 4 years later, a little brother for Bob would arrive in the bouncy baby Noctum. And in 1012, much to the surprise of, well, everyone, the Hootle family had done so well for themselves that they formed a second branch of the FoddSquad dynasty. A year later, the great emperor would earn himself the new title of Grandfather, as Clemens presented an heir of his own, Saul. On a sleepy November night, Ray would receive a perplexing piece of news. He was now considered the rightful ruler of the Kingdom of East Francia. After dispatching messengers to his vassals, word finally arrived about what had happened. Dobsonium II, King of France, had conquered the lands of East Francia. Hoping to better connect his western and eastern holdings, Ray would invade Lotharingia to claim the lands of Upper Lorraine. Nearly all of the action would happen in Luxembourg, with both the first major battle and the most important siege taking place there. Hostilities would come to an end after the Battle of Chaumont, when the Lotharingian heir Duke Sayer was taken prisoner. Ray would die of consumption at age 57. History remembers him as one of the greatest military commanders of his age. Clemens is in the prime of his youth, but can he live up to the gargantuan shadow left by his father and grandfather? Find out next time.